Jeff, let's bring on Evan Drellich, senior writer for The Athletic, former Astros beat writer. Who better to give us an inside look on his new book out about the Astros called Winning Fixes Everything, How Baseball's Brightest Minds Created the Sport's Biggest Mess. Evan, welcome to the show and congratulations on the book.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
What a
So, so Evan, before we get to the book, you've been covering baseball for a while now. Do you still get excited about spring training?
I'm down in spring training right now. Do I still get excited? I guess the pause gives it away. Not maybe in the same way I used to. It's nice being in the warm weather. It's nice kind of being in the pleasant setting of the grass. I don't know that it hits like when I was in college. I literally skipped classes to watch Mets spring training games. Really stupid thing to do. I'm not going to do, you know what I mean? It does become a profession at some point, but look, they gave me a nice muscle car down here. I enjoy it. It's not quite what it was when I was younger, but I do enjoy it.
wow.
Well, but this year, even if you don't enjoy it necessarily, there's lots of changes this year. Are you interested to see what the changes are going to be with all the rules?
No, absolutely. The reason I'm in Dunedin, Clearwater at the moment is because they had a whole rules demonstration here yesterday, on the field at the Blue Jays complex, not far from, the Phillies complex. And there's a lot for these umpires to keep track of. There's a lot that frankly could go wrong. I think you're going to hear some complaints, particularly in spring training, maybe early in the season too. And it is an interesting juncture for the sport that I think the goal of speeding up the game is a worthy one. I think it's good they're making efforts to change, but how they actually end up working at the major league level, strap yourself in. We're going to find out.
Has there been any, since we're about to get to your book, has there been any talk about ways that teams are going to find to cheat with these new rules?
No, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting. They're being pretty forward about this notion of trying to prevent what they're calling circumvention, but yeah, we can call it cheating. They have been conscious of it with this, and maybe it'd be an interesting question to ask. I don't know if I'd get a truthful answer, but maybe after the sign stealing and they bring in these video rooms with instant replay and they don't realize what's going to come of that, maybe they're a little more keen to, okay, well, we know how our front offices and clubhouses act. They're always trying to find an edge, so let's try to be out in front. So they do seem to be being proactive on this one.
Well, when getting to the book, you jump right into it. You don't waste any time. In the introduction, you say this is a book about what happens when business leaders decide the bottom line result's the only thing that matters. About what happens when a baseball team believes no matter how big a mess it creates, a championship parade will wipe away all the sins. You were there with the Red Sox. Talk about 2018, how you learned about the cheating during the ALCS.
Yeah, I had been an Astros beat writer from 13 to 16, but I left to go to Boston. So I was working for a regional sports network in Boston, and it was coincidentally during the Astros Red Sox ALCS in 18, and I was in Houston, and I spoke with people inside the organization firsthand, as opposed to a lot of what had kind of already cropped up, which was like, hey, I think that guy's cheating. This was actually firm information on the inside, and I was floored. I knew it was a big story. I knew I would want more corroboration. The series ends. I actually I do my television spot on the field after the final game of the series, and nobody's really down there, and it's kind of dark. So I just walk over to the Astros dugout into the tunnel area, and well, there's some wires hanging down, and there's a garbage can right next to that same wall, just as it was described to me. Even though it's a year later, you could still see these pieces of what seemed to be the tools of the scheme. And I took that photo, and that photo waited on my phone for 13 months, and eventually Ken Rosenthal and I got a story done. But it was a long 13 months.
You mentioned in the book, when did you realize it was more than just reporting stories, and it was something bigger for you?
Meaning that when I realized it was a book?
Yeah. When did you say, okay, there's more here. There's a book.
I'm very proud of the Astros cheating story. I think that will always be remembered and probably attached to me and certainly to Ken Rosenthal. But in a way, I'm almost as proud of, and maybe a drink or two in, I might tell you more proud of the reporting I did years earlier, 9 years ago now. I was really the first to report on questions of the Astros management culture back in 2014 when, they were losing a lot of games at that time, but they were really in vogue. It was, they were these analytics darlings. And, a lot of people who kind of saw it black and white, Astros good because analytics are good. Didn't like it, a lot of prominent people, but there were real issues festering there. And so I knew this from my time as an Astros beat writer, now going back a decade. I mean, the book is really a decade of work. It's not just the last couple of years. And, we have Brandon Taubman, the assistant general manager, get fired for yelling in the clubhouse. We have the sign stealing. I knew there was a larger story. I knew my own reporting. I knew some of the scandals that had happened before it. The Astros hadn't been strangers to controversy prior to 2018 and 2019. They were always kind of a lightning rod. And they did that to themselves. So I knew it was there. I knew it would be a really big task, but I felt like this sense of obligation. If I'm ever going to write a book about something, if not this, then what? Right? Broke the story. I have a vantage nobody else has. It felt like something I needed to tell.
And they even tried to remove you from the beat in 2015 because they didn't like your coverage. And in the book, you have an amazing quote where a person says, "I'll go to the end to crush you people, trust me." Talk about the process of reporting the threats and how important Mike Fiers was in terms of having somebody on the record.
Yeah, look, anything you're reporting, it doesn't matter if it's a massive cheating scheme or something smaller or bigger. If it's something of a real world impact, you want people on the record. Anonymous sources are not your first choice. You want people to put their names to things. Certainly, when it comes to messy, controversial business practices, it doesn't often happen. And so to have his name in the story, it adds validation. I do detect a lot of times there's a perception that the whole thing hinged on him, that that he called us up one day and decided to spill the beans, and that's how it all happened. When I guess it could have happened that way. Who knows? But it's just not what happened. We actually spoke to him. Ken Rosenthal made that call 3 days before publishing, and we were still trying to get people on the record. But the story was coming. We had the facts. We were going to go. It wasn't waiting for somebody on the record, but I'm really glad we did, and it took did get somebody on the record, and it took a lot of courage for him to do it. Look, when you're reporting on things that people don't want to talk about, it can get a little messy, get a little hairy, and that's true in politics. It's true in hard news reporting, outside business reporting. It's a lot of sports writing can just be kind of, and I'm not putting it down. I've done a lot of it myself, like entertainment writing, right? You're writing about a performance. This was a little closer to, it was investigative journalism.
And Evan, we often talk to local beat writers about how important the beat writers are, because you understand, as opposed to a national writer, you get to see the insides of the organization. You're there all the time. In this particular case, how important was it for you to understand the culture and what you had seen within the organization to kind of put together the story?
Yeah, that's what I was saying, where I think I had a vantage, a viewpoint and lived experience, having been in Houston where some other crazy stuff was going on at the time that nobody else really had. There was a book written about the Astros by a feature writer who dropped in and got some great access from the front office. But, that book in the end doesn't look very good. And it can be easy as a sports writer to look at the title of the book, right? A team wins, and they'll write really lovely things about you. But what if you encounter a team that is very good on the field, but has all sorts of crap going on behind the scenes, right? What if at the end of the day, and it was the case with the 2017 Astros, the trophy doesn't end the conversation. It is not the final word on success or competency or how you run your team. And so I knew there was stuff underneath. There was stuff that I hadn't gotten to report, but had been aware of, that I could newly pursue. I was very well positioned because look, as a beat writer, if we're talking about beat writers, it is hard to challenge or to present challenges and criticisms of the team you cover. It can come at a cost. It came at a cost to me in the sense that, upper management did not like me, literally tried to get me fired. But if you're doing it when there's real substance there and you're doing it fairly, others will notice that, and you will earn the respect and trust and the sourcing of other stakeholders. And it's, it's almost like a short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain. But I'm proud I had the gumption to do it.
I wanted to ask about this. This isn't just a story about stealing signs and banging on trash cans. This is about the way the league handled this. You said everybody thought this was a well-oiled machine, but when you look at it, it was a disorganized mess. Can you talk about the league's reaction to this and some of the other cheating that went on?
Well, from a league perspective, you don't want scandal after scandal after scandal. And so it's not surprising to me. It's not fair, but it's not surprising to me that, the 18 Red Sox punishment looks a lot different. It probably should have looked somewhat different than the Astros punishment, because the Red Sox weren't doing something quite as egregious, but they were still breaking the rules. MLB wants to promote positive things. The Astros culture was starting to bleed over into things like the postseason, right? In the 2018 playoffs, you have this controversy over this lower level Astros intern employee, Kyle McLaughlin, taking pictures near Cleveland and Boston's dugout. The next year, you have Brandon Taubman's blow up in the clubhouse. He gets fired, and that becomes a major controversy. So, 2 years in a row. It's not just that the Astros culture was affecting its own employees or players or agents of players. It was starting to affect the league in a way. And so I do think their patience had run out. And look, when they went in and searched for what Ken and I found, they also found real wrongdoing. Kind of a perfect storm in a way.
Why do you think the Astros aren't the only ones that cheated? They aren't the only ones that were stealing signs. Why do you think, from your investigation, the Astros situation was taken so much more seriously and has stuck to them more than other teams?
Well, for one, they win the World Series. I mean, yes, the 18 Red Sox do too. I think it comes down to a question of egregiousness. You can take a position that any cheating is cheating. Doesn't matter how severe or not. Fay Vincent, the former commissioner who's in the book, I had a conversation with him about that. And that seems to be his position, that, a little cheating could be just as damaging as a lot of cheating. I don't think that's the opinion of most. I don't think that's the opinion of most fans and inside the baseball industry. Typically, if you commit a crime, which, in baseball terms, there's some sense of severity, of degree. Whereas the Red Sox, the Yankees, the Dodgers might have been going, I don't know, 90 in a 65, 80, something in a 55, whatever numbers you want to assign to it. The Astros were going 120, right? They were taking it to a whole other level. Andy McCullough, who's a colleague of mine the other day, we were just talking out at Mets camp, and, he made a point that he said somebody else had made to him, somebody in baseball, that the Astros broke the Geneva Convention. It was just a whole step beyond, and that is perception. But you can have arguments about whether that perception is right, but that is the way it's looked at, and I do look at it that way as well. This was a cut above what the other teams were known to have doing, right? That you talk, if something came out later, maybe, who knows, but.
You talk about it being a baseball crime. One anecdote that didn't make it in the book, the FBI actually called you during their investigation to see what you knew. How did that go down?
Yeah, I was trying to remember. I think this would have been 20. I was in New York. I was reporting, I believe, at the time on the Red Sox. It was either my last year in Houston or I had just moved back to Boston. And I remember I was on the road in a hotel room. I guess everything weird happens to me in hotel rooms on the road covering baseball games. And yeah, I just got a call from a random number. It was an FBI agent who wanted to ask me about the Astro stuff, because in a weird way, I'm kind of indirectly tied into just the chronology of events, which is that I was the first to report on the Astros internal system, the database. They called it ground control, little NASA play there, and Bowie. And after that story runs is the first time the Astros realized, hey, people are trying to get into our system. And the Astros thought it was because their URL had been visible in a photo they allowed the Chronicle, my paper at the time, to take. And their URL shouldn't have been, in the photo. Somebody should have caught that internally, the Astros. Like, they shouldn't have allowed somebody to turn around the monitor and have the URL visible. So people were trying to get in, but it turned out that people had already gotten in. Or at least one person, and that would have been Chris Correa of the Cardinals, who literally gets sent to federal prison. So I don't think I was much help to the FBI. I just explained to them what basically what I just told you guys here. But yeah, that's a weird wrinkle. I didn't include it in the book, but it is a weird wrinkle.
Evan, as somebody who's read the book, there are moments in this book, and there's moments in any good book where you just kind of shake your head and go, "Wow." As the person who got to investigate this and write this book, what was the one moment that you just shook your head and went, "Wow"? Was it Joey Cora, or Alex Cora, or was it just something else?
There were so many of them, truly, for me, as I was going through it, where I had that, whoa, this is wild. Like who would believe some of this stuff that's going on? The brazenness of Alex Cora bragging, we stole that World Series. The thing that jumped out at me, I think, was there'd been a book written about the 2017 Astros. It makes no mention of the fact that McKinsey and Company was present inside the Astros offices working with baseball operations during that same season, and that it was this major fracturing of the front office. The difference between the public narrative of the Astros and what was actually going on, all this infighting between top executives about the future of innovation and research and development at the Astros. There's a quote in the book. I think the McKinsey report is what ended up leading to the destruction of the Astros front office. And so you have this amazing team on the field, but they're coming apart at the seams behind the scenes, not just with the cheating scheme, but with this really divisive thing in the front office. All of this inside of 2017, which everybody looked at as this, wow, what a magical season. It's that difference between reality and narrative really did strike me.
People need to read it for themselves. The book is out everywhere. Winning Fixes Everything: How Baseball's Brightest Minds Created Sports' Biggest Mess. Evan Drellich, thank you so much for the time. Best of luck with the book, and enjoy spring training.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.